Hello everybody. You're all from quite a few different industry sectors here, so I'll start with kind of digital transformation. And digital transformation across all of your industry sectors really is about the evolution of different innovative business and operational models so that all of you can offer different products and services and experiences to your customers, to your employees and your stakeholders alike. And underpinning all of that is the Internet of Things. Now that's been evolving rapidly, I would say, over the last couple of decades. And it's about, as we know, bringing smart connected devices or products together. And when that's done right, it allows us to be able to realize new functionalities and capabilities, improve reliability and utilization across areas that just wouldn't have been able to do that prior to the connected aspect. So companies going through this kind of transformative journey have to juggle quite a few plates in the air. You have to ensure that the internal change is supporting that external shift. And by that I mean the changes that you need to make in the marketing, the IT, the support, the distribution channels, that has to be able to support that external shift towards offering products and services that are direct to the customer with that two-way communication that needs to be handled immediately. So this holistic approach of kind of front and back of house and making sure that they're aligned and in tandem is key to the success of a digital health offering. Now, in today's presentation, I want to narrow the focus from digital transformation per se, which is running through all of this, to kind of a deep dive into the technologies that underpin this, and in particular IoT, sensing and AI. I want to show how they're particularly disruptive in our healthcare industry, which is close to my heart. And it's a very highly regulated industry because obviously patient safety is paramount, so it's very slow to adopt new tech and trends. So I want to demonstrate how business as usual is no longer sustainable in our industry and how tech is providing the answers, not just now, but in the future for how we're going to better care for people. Now, according to the World Health Organization, by 2050, the world's population over 60 is going to reach 2 billion. And that's up from 900 million from 2015. And of that 2 billion, 80% are going to be over 60 years of age. And they're going to be in low to middle income countries. So those low to middle income countries currently don't have the infrastructure or the healthcare professionals to give them high quality care. But they demand it quite rightly. They should expect the exact same care that we are able to avail of here. So throwing money at a problem like this isn't the only thing that's needed. If we're going to be able to have sustainable, good quality care for everybody with a growing elderly population, something else has got to happen, and that's increasing our healthcare professionals themselves. Elderly people, they tend to have more persistent and chronic conditions that are complex and costly to treat. So as this problem increases and people grow or get older and stay healthy for longer or just stay alive for longer, healthcare costs are going to increase. So how do we square this circle? Well, we need more resource. Now, it's estimated that we're going to need about 18 million different extra healthcare professionals across all industries, so across all disciplines, so nurses and surgeons, physicians, GPs, everybody needs to play a part here. And that's a 55% increase in the next decade. And if you just do the maths, it takes about 10 years anyway to train a physician to be truly impactful in their area of choice. So we would have to recruit today 18 million people in order to have them up and running to treat this increasingly elderly population in a decade. And that's just not going to happen. So we need to look at things differently because our healthcare system is not really fit for purpose if we just continue with business as usual. So technology is an obvious answer here to throw at this problem. And it's really good because it allows us to scale this high quality care in an asynchronous fashion, so we can have one healthcare provider treating many patients in the comforts of their homes, and we have services now available that we need to kind of pull together in a much more holistic way. But we've got telemedicine, We've got remote patient monitoring with wearables and smart homes. And we've also got chatbots to help us triage and not clog up GPs and clinics and ERs. So they're all powered by IoT, sensing and AI. So I'm just going to have a little bit of a deep dive now into some real world examples of how they're transforming the industry now and in the future, where we could be looking to. I'm going to start with IoT, and I'm going to start with the IoMT flavour, so the Internet of Medical Things. We reckon that it's about a market value of 158 billion in the next 2 years. That there are a number of ways that the Internet of Medical Things, so where we're hooking up health and wellness trackers, connected drug delivery devices, surgical devices, smart implants, all of that information is being hooked up as we speak. There are a number of challenges, we'll get to that in a minute, but that information is not only helping us to personalise the care of individuals, but it's allowing us to develop new services moving forward. If we look at how IoMT is going to help care for our elderly population, which as we know is our kind of real burden on cost and resource, we can see a number of ways that we have some quick wins here. So elderly patients often forget to take their medication. So compliance to regime, if not followed, means unnecessary flare-ups in conditions and unnecessary hospital visits. I think I read a while ago that it's every time somebody walks through the hospital door in the US, it's $10,000. So you just need to maintain that compliance to regime, which sounds easy to do, but just seems to be quite difficult. But technologies has a quick win here. So connected drug delivery devices are time and date stamped. So every time somebody uses them, that information can go back to the clinicians. They can see if people are or are not using their devices correctly. And then clouds and apps can push reminders and schedules and alerts to people. So there's a much more two-way conversation and a real-time update of how people are actually dealing with their conditions. Now we look at something like a wearable. Wireless wearables are fantastic because they help monitor our patients in their own home. And any of us who have been to hospital know you get sicker in hospital often. There's loads of infections. It's not a nice place to kind of recuperate and get better. So the more we can keep people in their homes whilst we're either diagnosing and or treating them and maintaining them there, the better. So wearables allow us to track our activity and our sleep, our heart rate, monitor glucose, all good things like that. And that information is useful not only to our clinicians, but to the carers, because they can understand the habits of their patients and understand when they breach boundaries and parameters. So if mobility is also a challenge for this patient cohort, then the Internet of Things is really good here because we can hook up some portable point of care diagnostics. So routine blood and urine tests that would require the patient to have to go all the way to a clinic to get those tests done. That can be done again in the comfort of our own homes. So just on that little example there, it sounds great. IoMT is going to help us with our elderly population and all of us. And it does have the potential to do that, no doubt. But there are a couple of challenges we have to overcome. The benefits to IoT at the patient level, I hope I've kind of outlined, but also it's a really, really good way to facilitate workflow optimization, inventory management, and medical device integration. But it comes with its challenges. I would say in studying the digital health industry at the moment, we're probably at this first circle of discrete disease management systems being pulled together. And we're seeing that's very nascent still. If I look at diabetes, for example, these ecosystems are being set down with standards and more people are trying to connect into them. But we definitely, I don't feel yet, have kind of moved across to kind of comprehensive health systems where each disease condition is linked to another, because we're rarely ill in isolation. Many chronic persistent conditions tend to have comorbidities. So we are a system, so we need a kind of a systems approach, and we need to join all of these separate IoT platforms. Therein lies a lot of challenges that we've got to overcome. As more data and more devices get loaded onto platforms, we have to know how to handle that data securely. We have to know how to extract useful insights from it. And we have to all play nicely together. And I think collaboration between hospital administrators, between IT vendors, and between medical device manufacturers all has to come to play. And sometimes we need governments to intervene to say, you all must interoperate together and you must use standards like fire, for example. And it has to come to that sometimes, where everybody is mandated to play nicely and work together. But we're getting there. So I want to, at this point, stop and ask you to use your app, if possible. So go into the schedule, go into this particular talk, and then I think it will bring up the 3 questions. And I just want to kind of get some mood music in the room about where we all are on this. So in terms of kind of digital transformation within your own particular industries, if you could answer if you're selling products and services at the moment direct to your customers that contain a digital element, it would be really interesting. So either yes or no, but no, we're working on it would be useful. Yeah. Oh, great. Wow. Nobody's no. That's fantastic. Great. So you're all well versed in internal change, supporting external shifts, which is really, really good. It's a really hard and painful process for many people to go on, but it's fantastic that so many of you have embarked on it. If you come out of that, I think it says exit poll, you'll get to the second question, which is, and I guess the answer should be, mostly yes, are you using an IoT platform today? So for those of you that are selling digital products without an IoT platform, I would be interested to see how you're doing it. But thinking about it is good. Okay. Now, finally, have you generated useful insights from this data? And this is really important. I think so many of us are on a journey of kind of just putting the jigsaw pieces together and joining the dots. So I think, yeah, still connecting devices is a fairly logical step for so many people. Data but not insights is so useful. I used to work in bioinformatics from 2000 to 2008. And we thought we were swimming in data then when there were terabytes of data and we were trying to understand how we were going to find the next new biological or chemical entity. And we've got just so much more data now. And generating data for the sake of generating data is not ideal, because even though we've got fantastic neural networks with which to generate insights, if you don't know what you're looking for, just generating data for the sake of it is a difficult call, and quite a lot of people tend to launch into this without a coherent strategy up front. So it's fantastic to know that everybody in this room is genuinely moving through the digital transformation and understanding that data are your crown jewels, and the insights that you have are how you're going to monetize your products and services. Okay, I'm going to focus now on AI. Just one example, or 2 examples here of AI, and then we're going to move into some cool new project that we're doing and show you a video of what we're doing around contactless monitoring. So first of all, let's just talk about AI. We've heard a lot about it this morning, and I no doubt we're going to hear a lot about it moving forward. I want to do 2 particular examples. One is Babylon Health here in the UK. Has anyone used Babylon Health at all? Okay, so it's a really interesting company. I've been following it since about 2016. Works with NHS England to provide an alternative chatbot-enabled way to deal with primary care issues. And it's really disrupting the way many Londoners at this stage, and rolling out to Birmingham, Manchester this year, are seeing the benefits of digital in terms of healthcare. So what they do is they basically make you deregister from your GP first. So the barrier to entry for this service is quite high. So you've got to deregister, then you've got to onboard on their platform, put all of your healthcare information in. And then you can either use an app or a web browser to work with the chatbot to identify simple problems that you may have, triage you to the right services. If you need a clinician or a doctor's consultation, it can go via online through the app. It will automatically prescribe and order your prescriptions for you. So it's fantastic because when it started, it was quite a low adoption, lots of naysayers, particularly the GPs, thinking this is really disruptive, which it was and is. There's 1.4 million Londoners using this service now, and it's just ever increasing. And it's all about, even though that barrier to entry is high, it's really patient-centric, because it's saying, well, I'm ill when I am ill, and I need to see a doctor when I want to see a doctor, not when the doctor can fit me in. And so people just realise that there are other alternatives. This is a brilliant story around digital transformation, in my opinion. So watch this space. There are many of them, but Babylon Health is quite far forward in the journey. Now, our next example, I think Tim was talking about this morning, so I won't labour the point here, but I think what's interesting about this is how it could transform healthcare in low to middle income countries, and speed up, and just something as simple as what we've done here, speeding up labour-intensive processes, which always introduce kind of human error into the results. So TB, as we know, one of the world's top 10 causes of death. Treatment is available, and that's great, but what's absolutely key is that we accurately monitor progress throughout treatment. And the current state of the art is a lab technician stares down a microscope for 8 to 10 hours a day, counting cell samples. It's about 40 minutes per patient. So you can imagine by the end of the day, they're quite tired. We often get inaccurate results because it's just human nature, right? We can introduce inaccuracy just through just day-to-day human intervention, to be honest. So what we've been able to do is to take a very low-cost smartphone. We've been able to take a low-cost microscope that's commonly used in these low-resource countries, and we've been able to train a neural network to identify and count TB cells. And we've taken the processing time down from 40 minutes to 6, and we're working down to get it to 5. We're automatically digitizing those results and sending it to clinicians as well. So I think that this type of system, which is inexpensive and therefore democratizes healthcare, allows us to demonstrate the potential of AI to address kind of global healthcare challenges. Now, none of this would be possible without sensing. Without sensing, we can't get our data to put onto our platform to analyze it with AI. So what I want to do now is to talk to you about a sensing project that we've been doing this year, where we have taken the idea of wearables, where we put onto people to gather vital sign information, and take it one step further. And it's quite technically difficult to measure vital signs without any wearables on anyone, so contactless monitoring via cameras. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today. And I want to put it in the context of the sepsis care pathway, and hopefully show you that the combination of contactless monitoring coupled with IoT and AI can help us to detect patients who are deteriorating in hospital far quicker, which then can help with early intervention for sepsis and save countless lives. When I was looking at sepsis, I was really quite shocked at these factoids up here. So first of all, what is it? It's an acute illness where our body's immune system simply over-responds to an infection. And if we don't catch it in time, it can have tissue damage, organ failure, and death. And you think, oh, well, I'm sure we catch it in time. Well, actually, in the UK, 52,000 people a year die from sepsis unnecessarily. And to put that into context, that's more than heart attacks in the under 75s, which is in the low 40,000s, lung cancer, which is in the low 30,000s, and breast cancer, which is around 11,500. Costing our NHS 1.5 to 2 billion a year, and again, putting that into context, it costs the NHS about 1.1 billion for asthma each year. So huge figures here for sepsis, which is preventable, and early detection is absolutely vital. From the point of infection, it can kill in 12 hours, and people who are in hospital are absolutely the most vulnerable for sepsis. And so it's vital that we detect a deteriorating patient early and find out if it is sepsis and treat them accordingly. And if we were to diagnose earlier, we could save a lot of those 52,000 lives, estimated by the Sepsis Fund to be, Trust to be about 14,000 extra lives. So this is where the technology that I'm about to show you can assist. Now, just as a context for what is the current state of the art for patient monitoring right now, the National Early Warning Score, or NEWS, is used in England. I think the early warning score is used in America, and there will be lots of variations of this globally. But it's basically a track and trigger early warning system. And it helps healthcare professionals to identify those that are deteriorating and give them clinical intervention to work out what's wrong with them. It's typically done every 12 hours on a round in the morning and in the evening. And it's these 6 simple physiological parameters, so their breathing rate, their level of consciousness, the oxygen saturation in their blood, blood pressure, temperature, and heart rate, are taken manually using blood cuffs and thermometers and various things, and entered into a chart, either a chart on your iPad or like a physical piece of paper. Now, the scores that are written down are allocated to each physiological parameter, and the size of that score or the magnitude of it reflects how much that parameter has moved and shifted from the norm. So the scores are aggregated and you get a single number. And anyone with the number of 5 is considered to be at risk of sepsis. So just recapping, NHS England have this early warning score system to monitor any patient in hospital, but it's done every 12 hours. If a patient deteriorates between these observation rounds, the warning signs can go undetected, leading to serious and costly consequences, given our 12-hour period from infection to death in sepsis. So we need to move from episodic to continuous monitoring. There were 52,000 deaths, as I say, last year, and in Finland, that was 5 times more than in Finland. Continuous monitoring seems like a slam dunk, right? Of course we would do that with everybody, but it's actually quite an expensive thing to do. So at the moment, if you're identified of being at risk with sepsis, you're hooked up to continuous monitoring. There are lots and lots of wires. You could be hooked up to wireless wearable patches for some of the vital signs, not all. But those wearable patches have to be treated as consumables. They're thrown away every 2 to 3 days. So it's kind of costly and not really sustainable. So the ideal scenario, therefore, is to have monitoring units above each hospital bed that are accessing those 6 vital signs, contactless, pushing the information onto the platform, having immediate analysis to get news scores, and having all of that information readily available at nurses' stations for anybody to look at so that it can triage effectively. I think that this type of system could be available in the next decade or so, and there are a couple of hurdles to overcome that I'll talk about. But what I want to show you is, I would say, about 3 months' work from the team who have done an absolutely fantastic job of rising to the challenge that was set. How many of these vital signs can you measure? So I want to show you a quick video now of kind of data capture and talk you through what we've been doing. So here you see a volunteer sitting in front of the rig that I'll explain in more detail and getting 4 of the vital signs out in real time. So we have 3 cameras measuring 4 vital signs. Thermal imaging for skin temperature. That calculates skin temperature using thermographic video imaging with facial tracking. The infrared video feed measures the participant's surface temperature at the forehead and measures the hottest part there. The machine vision camera captures heart rate and blinking. That also does facial tracking as well as feature recognition. We recognise 68 different features and landmarks on the face. And it finds, again, a region of interest at the forehead for heart rate detection using skin flushing. And using signal processing techniques, captures a heart rate estimate every second of a 10-second moving window. It also captures blinking by measuring eye aspect ratio. And we're using that as our proxy for consciousness at the moment. A time of flight camera measures respiration by measuring a depth, the changes in depth at a region of interest on our chest. So we've managed to get these 4 signals And if I just move to the next part of the video, what happens is when the volunteer is sat in front of that rig, you can see we've got heart rate, respiration, blinking, going up and down, and his skin temperature. Now what we've done, these are a set of our volunteers. And so what you can see on our volunteers is that we've managed to get a fairly large range of skin tone. And I'll talk a bit more in a second about the challenges that we're encountering there. But just to let you know, we have managed quite a good range of skin tone, up to Fitzpatrick 5. But before I just go back to the challenges inherent with that, let's just see what this type of system could look like in the future. So imagine that in a decade from now, we've also managed to acquire blood pressure and oxygen saturation in contactless ways. What could that information do for our healthcare professionals? So imagine that this is our Queen Elizabeth Hospital in London, and this is a representation of the floor with all of the patient beds on there. And we have a colour coding scheme. So we have bed 10 is red, and if we see the current status priorities, we see that bed 10 has an early warning score of 9. And we see 6 and 5 here. So those people are called the sepsis 6 patients, and they are the ones that will have further treatment to see, or further due diligence done to see if they actually have sepsis. So for example, the immediate actions here would be to do bloods to find out whether or not sepsis was occurring here. But what's interesting about this is, rather than these kind of episodic monitoring points, we're able with longitudinal data like this to see trending. So we can see people trending towards a 5, and you don't want to wait until somebody is a 5 to intervene. Sepsis, you know, the earlier you can get there, the better. So we start to colour code those trending towards a 5 as well, so people can be aware of that and triage accordingly. And again, helpfully, you would be able to see that graph of the trending. Is it going down or up from a 0? So a 0, somebody who's just absolutely fine and just in a hospital bed, would be colour-coded white. So you can see this kind of way of really, really helpfully allowing the staff to manage their priorities. And this system allows them to manage by exception as well. So only those people that are alerting are shown, so that they can kind of give the right care at the right time to the right people. So the future, I did talk about some challenges. As I say, the project took us about 3-4 months now to complete. We're not finished yet, but it wasn't without its challenges. I think for contactless monitoring to be kind of rolled out at scale globally, you have to make sure that you are able to monitor all skin tones from the same region. So just going back to our volunteers, the Fitzpatrick skin type is a skin classification system used to determine our response to UV. And it's on a scale of 1 to 6, depending on how much melanin is in the skin. Our system is able to robustly and reliably measure 1 to 4. People who are Fitzpatrick scale 5, we can measure, but there's a significant amount of noise in the data. And 6, we can only do at the moment with the palm of the hand. So technology needs to move forward to make this robust for all skin types. At the moment, you noticed from our video that our volunteers had to remain quite still. Excessive movement, again, gives excessive noise and unreliability to the data. And so that would also have to be addressed moving forward to have this kind of commercially available. Blood pressure is the holy grail for contactless monitoring. Nobody has managed to crack it yet, but we feel that our rig is of sufficient resolution now that we can start to dive into some of our signals and do some work next year to see if we can crack that. Possibilities for future applications. I mean, it's endless, I imagine, but transport, people in long-distance lorry drivers, air traffic control, pilots, use in defence and security and smart homes. I think that the possibilities are endless for this once we crack it. And it's a tech problem. And so no better place than here to try and crack something like that. You know, our guys and girls are really, really excited to keep working on this to see where we can get to. So to summarise, the advances we're making in technology can provide us with huge opportunities to improve our healthcare system. I hope that I've been able to show just some of that today, both in operational efficiencies and new services that we can engage and treat patients with. Digitally transforming any sector requires a collaborative, integrated, multidisciplinary approach. I don't think we're there yet in our sector. I think government, academia, tech vendors, medtech, everybody has to come together, I think, and start to interoperate. It's no mean feat to coordinate, and the challenges are large, but I think that the rewards are really, really high. When done right, digital provides a direct access to customers. Direct feedback allow for swift iterative changes that are positive for the target audiences that in turn increase brand loyalty. So I hope that I've shown you today that we're at the start of an exciting tech journey. It's very nascent in healthcare, but it's very exciting, and I think it's one that will benefit all of us in the future and help us provide low-cost quality healthcare for everybody. And with that, I would like to open it up for questions.
Okay, so questions for Jaquie.
Richard Wood from AstraZeneca. So
Hi, Richard.
we're doing lots of interest in patient monitoring. And one of the things in chronic care of patients outside of hospital is monitoring so that we can intervene before failure. And most of our chronic diseases we treat, send people away, and then wait till they fail and end up back in the clinic.
Yeah.
How far have you gone? I like what you've done in a hospital bed. Where are you going beyond the hospital bed into chronic care?
So if you look upstairs in the demo area, there is, and come and chat to me afterwards, a demo with a mannequin that you will have seen wearing a pink vest. And essentially what that was around was very much about monitoring physiological conditions using wearables and voice on the phone. And that was a patient-friendly form factor that we derived, which allows you to take subjective responses from people. I feel fatigue, I feel pain, I feel happy, anxious, stressed, and quantify those qualitative responses using wearables. And so that real-world data is longitudinal and does exactly, as you say, allows people to be alerted, because we're not just gathering the biometrics, we're gathering all the contextual data as well using the app. So the app was there to get the voice, to train the algorithm, but you can imagine having, as we've set it in a clinical trial setting, a daily diary. How are you feeling, stress test questionnaires, pulling data in from my Fitbit, and so activity, sleep, how much they're drinking and eating, and all of that contextual information with the biometrics allows you then to be able to have a much more informed decision in real time about that patient in their home and be able to kind of be proactive rather than reactive. So we started last year with that system, which was very much on body and phone, and then moved into the hospital this year just to see how, if we could push the boundaries. But absolutely agree with you that the low-hanging fruit for this is in the chronic conditions, definitely. So happy to talk to you more about what we've done, because it would be great to work with, with you on that.
Okay, so a question from the app, so thank you to whoever submitted that. Under continuous monitoring in the field, what role does the reliability of connectivity have in that challenge? And I can take a bit of that question if you like as well.
5G, it's absolutely vital. I think I saw something yesterday about the Dexcom glucose monitor going down, and because of connectivity at the weekend and everybody being alerted, and so it's vital. So as I say, this is really nascent in healthcare, and lots of these pieces need to be put together, but I'm excited about connectivity from the point of view of how much more robust we are going to get in the future with 5G in particular, and maybe you can add more.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's certainly a sort of an off-the-shelf 5G advantage available. For the applications that we've seen to date, that's actually not enough. I'll use a couple of public client project examples that we can talk about. Going back a number of years, we developed the IntelliView system for Philips, which was a vital sign monitoring system. And the first part of that project actually entailed going in and doing radio surveys of hospitals with big thick concrete walls, with big metallic structures, with big metallic things that move around, you know, in a typical hospital environment. And in the end, modified DECT technology, our handheld household phone technology, moved it to the WMTS band, 1.4 gigs. We modified the spectral purity to match the requirements of that band. We modified the framing structure to provide greater resilience and quality of service. That was necessary then. Today, there are modern versions of that, and more recently, outside healthcare, work with Ocado, where we helped them develop, in fact, this was a project that Tim drove, a very, very dense mobile network based on 4G technology, again customized to provide beyond 4G performance, which was broadly equivalent to a density of communication of everybody in Paris waking up in the morning, switching on their phones and placing a call, and that call getting through in these hives of activity in their fulfillment centres with robots, you know, flying around in 3 dimensions within those spaces. So today you definitely have to do extra things based on the standards, but 5G, you know, provides some additional promise.
Thanks, Joe.
Great. There was another question just down at the front.
In terms of doing contactless monitoring, how viable does blood pressure look? I mean, are there techniques that can be used for contactless, or will it be some combination of, say, daily calibration with cuffs, or maybe just some wearable device that simply needed to facilitate a camera-based system?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've seen I haven't seen any patents out there. The closest, at the moment, the greatest breakthrough I've seen is the smartwatch last week that came out with the kind of inflatable cuff. And there's been some, I think there's a group down in London working in some sort of PPG style, laser style thing, but this is the holy grail. So I don't know if it's going to be possible, and I imagine that 4 or 5 signs out of 6 would be still good enough to move forward with something that is commercially viable and gives a much better return on investment and better quality of care. So yeah, I don't know where we'll go to on that one.
Thank you.
Thank you.